Lawrenceburg, y'all here? We're looking a little bare in here today, but that's okay. We don't have to sound like it. I don't have the remote. Everybody, stand up. If you thought I wasn't going to do it, you're wrong. Okay. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Allergy and sinus issues hold people back, but with our reimagined approach to relief, we make sure everyone finds their breath of fresh air.
For today's core value shout out, I would like to point out our core value of being growth minded. This is Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed by the world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. And for this core value, I would really like to shout out Kayla. As I've been training with the billing team, she has been so patient with me, but she has also been willing to try new things and not afraid to fail at those things, but also taking feedback from those things, and watching her step up into that core value has truly been inspiring. So Kayla, I thank you for not only having the patience with me, but being very growth minded during this transition.
Okay, let's give it up for Kayla. Look at you. We are so thankful for you. Well, how's everybody doing? We're doing good. Everyone's great. Okay, I just got a couple of announcements for you. Everyone needs to turn the smiles off. Okay, so exciting news. Drum roll, please. The Breathe In Boo is coming to a B&B near you on November 1st from 4 to 6 p.m. I'm reading this off, so that's why I was like, make sure I got that right. It is going to be basically what we did last year. So that was a hit. Everyone loved it. So make sure you make plans to attend and make plans to help if you would like. It's going to be so fun. We really did have a blast. The next thing, just a reminder about scrubs. I've already seen a few receipts come through my desk, so just make sure that you are getting those to me, and I will be rolling out those reimbursements for you. If you need the FIGS logo, just let me know. I've sent it to Paige and Marley, so if you need it, I'm more than happy to email that to you. Sound good? Yes? Did I miss anything? I think that was it. Yes, Forward. I know I was missing something. Thank you so much to the help on the side. Forward is... he's the help. Forward... What? Anyway... Forward is back, and we will be starting that up at the end of August. I'm still trying to finalize a date that works for everyone and works for me and Hannah, as we'll be kind of like tackling leading that. But if you are interested, please send me a message so I know to plan for you, and then maybe we can all kind of get our heads together on what day works best for all of us. Okay? Perfect.
Man, I'm sad to see that go because that's always really good. Give it up for Blaze one more time. Well, how are we doing? This is, drum roll please, the last service standard in the set. So this is number 16. Can you believe it? Wow. Big shout out and hello to all of our online watchers, our people working from home in their PJs. And also, thanks so much for the Lawrenceburg team and giving us a good tune in. I would be in my PJs if I was at home. That's factual. I'd be like business on top, but 100% like PJs on bottom. My man. Yes. Yeah. Stay out. The camera's just right here. Keep it up above the neck. Thank you. Okay, so this last service standard is one that's going to be challenging, probably the most challenging to understand and adhere to, because it really deals with a lot of personal reflection. And it's really, really important to walk through what it means because it's really an outcome-based service standard. What I mean by that is it's not a way to think, it's a way to be. Okay, so this service standard is you as a team member, as a leader, as a caregiver, as a nurse, as a coffee shop barista, whatever role you play, you're right a lot. And so what I mean by that is when you say something, or when you provide a care plan, or when you make a beverage, or when you submit a bill, or when you do it, most of the time, a lot of the time, it's done right. And so what I want you to do, is what I'm going to do today is break this down for you, and what are the barriers to being right a lot? What are the barriers that inhibit us from being correct in how we practice or how we do things? Because ultimately, when you come to any service place, the person or the patron that's patronizing that business wants a good outcome, right? If I take my car to the mechanic and it's like making a noise, I want what the mechanic says to be right? I don't want I don't know what's going on there. Sorry, I can't help you. I think you got too much gas in your car. I'm like, it's electric. They're like, shoot, dog, I didn't even know that, right? So we want the outcome to be right. So in order to do that, that really idealistically comprises of 3 areas. The first is excellence. And this is one we harp on a lot. We have a core value of committed to excellence. And what this really is being okay with not mediocrity, right? We're not okay with just turning in a performance. We're not okay with that'll do. We're really going to call ourselves to a higher standard. We're going to call ourselves to better than just okay. It's a personal decision. We've talked about Daniel a lot in this from the Old Testament, how when Daniel was in Babylon, he was really specific and intentional. It was his name was on something that he did, and so he was elevated to a high position because of that performance, because of that mentality, and that's what got him to where he was, because he was excellent, not for the place or the king or whatever he wanted, but because it was who he was. The next thing is responsibility. And responsibility is really taking the mentality and idea of pride and setting it aside. Because the number one thing that separates us from an attitude of responsibility is usually our own pride. It's when we say to ourselves, or we say to somebody talking to us, not my fault, not my department, not my issue, that was theirs, that was yours, not mine. What are we doing? We're defending our pride in that moment. Because I'm not going to be wrong about this. I'm not going to be the one that takes the responsibility. I'm not going to be the one that has to admit failure here, because my pride tells me that I've got to fight against that, right? In order to be right organizationally, leadership, the person talking to the patient, the person giving the care plan has to be willing to say it's my responsibility to find the right answer, right? It may not be coming from me in that moment. You may ask me a question about, hey, did you get that prescription filled for me? Oh, shoot, I totally forgot to do that, right? Well, I could give you a lie and say, or that's not my responsibility. I don't do that, right? Patient doesn't care. Patient just wants to know if the prescription got filled, right? So sometimes I've got to take responsibility, or I've got to step out of myself and even be willing to take something on for a moment to make sure the patient gets the right answer, right? I used to be, when I first started, I used to tell this story all the time, but when you do surgery at the hospital, you have to get all the packets of information, right? This is before Jesse would do all that for me. I'd do it myself. Can you believe that? I'd do it by myself to do all that stuff? I know. Travesty. Ooh, I got hot even thinking about it. Well, truth be told, I didn't do it. Tabitha did all that. So, so Tabitha would put all the papers together for our 3 surgeries we'd have in a week. And we would try to fax the information over, and they would always lose the faxes. And it took us, we used to fight for hours about, like, you can't get a fax, what's wrong with you, right? Finally, Tabitha would make these packets, and I would take the packets over to the hospital, and I would set them down. And then invariably in the second case, they would call me and say, this stuff is wrong. The order's not right. And in my own mind, I wanted to be like, well, you just let you, Tabitha Duke, it's your fault to see what it is, right? And what I had to come to terms with in that moment was the nurse in front of me is like, I don't care whose fault it is. I don't care whose problem it is. The patient needs blank. Can you just do it? Right? I don't really, that doesn't bother me. You don't have to blame. You don't have to tell me that you didn't make a mistake. So in that moment, I had to like relearn, okay, like I'm the face of the organization. People call and say, hey, is this Dr. Masterson's? Yes. So if that's, my name's on that, right? It says like Dr. Masterson's patient. So whatever's in that packet, doesn't matter who did it. Doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. If somebody asks a question, it's my responsibility. That's an attitude shift, not in order to make myself feel good, but to give the patient, the nurse, the person standing in front of me the right answer. And the last part of this is confidence. And confidence is the thing we're going to spend the most time on today, because it's often the thing that gets in our way the most when it comes to being right. How many times have you been in a lecture or a teaching session, or even, in a group of people and somebody asks a question, and you legitimately are like, I know the answer to this one. Oh, I got it. Or you're like, I don't understand this. I should raise my hand and ask a question, but something inside of you goes, heck no. I'm not going to look like an idiot. I'm not going to do that, right? It's this fear or lack of confidence in that everybody around me is going to think I'm less, right? Confidence is saying, whatever happens in this situation, that has nothing to do with who I am as an individual. So if I don't know the answer to your question right now, I'm going to say, I don't know. And that, guess what? That doesn't mean I'm dumb. That doesn't mean I'm stupid, less than, worthless, below. It's okay to say that, because the most important thing is that you get the correct answer. Is that the organization, the answer I give you is correct, even if I don't know in the moment. And honestly, that's really difficult for a lot of people, because when I say I don't know, or I didn't have that answer, or I'm not sure, we often tell ourselves the story of, what does that say about me? What does this mean about me if I'm wrong? What's the story that the person that's receiving this information says about me? And that usually is divided into one of three areas, right? Our past, present, and future. What if I don't have this, or I don't need this, or I can't give this? That says something about each of those categories. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more in just a second. And I want you to understand that excellence, responsibility, and confidence, those together will lead to a right answer, especially if we don't even know. And so if you find yourself in a situation of ambiguity, which means I'm not really sure what's going on right now, if you have those three elements, that's going to be a proxy for judgment, right? I'm in this space of ambiguity right now, and I'm not really confident of how to navigate it. You're in an organization right now, currently, and you may be in a different organization later. You may be in this organization for a long time. But if you stay in healthcare, you're going to find yourself navigating a space that's not really clear. Like, I've never been here before. We've never tried to do this before. We've never opened this. We've never prescribed this medication. We've never done any of that. Like, I'm just navigating the unknown right now. And there's not a clear pathway. There's not a clear protocol. And the truth is, a lot of times people find themselves in that situation, and it makes them very, very uncomfortable, because they're like, I don't want to be in this situation. I want to know what the next 5, 10, 15 minutes look like, 10 years look like, right? How many gone on vacation and you're like, hey, we're going to go on vacation and we got no plan. We're just going to go sit on the beach and do nothing. For some people, that's like, praise him, hallelujah. For some people, they just get tense thinking about that. Like, you mean like we don't have a schedule? Like, we're going to go somewhere and we're not going to like 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 2:30. I need a sketch. I need to know what's going on, right? There's another group of people that are like, hey, what's the plan in life? Like, what's the next 10 months look like? I don't really know. What's the next 2 years look like? You going to live in that apartment right forever the next 2 years? Are you going to get a house? Are you going to have a plan to upgrade? Are you going to get a new car? Are you going to do something different? Yeah, I got plans for days. Other people are like, right? We have different predispositions, but we have to be comfortable in business and comfortable on a team dynamic that we don't always get our preference. Some of us are comfortable with ambiguity. Some of us get really tense in ambiguity. But I can guarantee you that regardless of the situation that you're in like healthcare or professionally, there's going, especially if you're on an attitude or a path toward growth, you're going to have to deal with this nebulous, I don't know when it's going to happen, or I don't know what it's going to be. Or when I try this new thing, I don't know what it's going to look like. I was literally just talking to Marley about the food treatment they were doing today, right? And like, here's this brand new thing we're doing. And we're giving them drops to treat their food allergy. And I got tickled a little bit because she was like, we were just watching her. Should we get a pulse ox? I'm still talking to you. No, let's get a pulse ox real quick. Okay, we're good. Are you still good? Right? It's like we're navigating this space of ambiguity, right? And it's uncomfortable sometimes because we just want this plan. And I want you to be as comfortable with that. And in order to be comfortable with ambiguity, you've got to have this proxy for decision making, this ability to be right, which is facilitated through confidence, responsibility, and excellence. Because there's not always a right answer, right? Like in that moment when they're treating that patient with the food drops, how do we monitor that patient? I mean, we're going to take responsibility. We're going to do it really well. And I'm going to have confidence that if anything goes wrong, I can take care of it, right? That's the answer. That's correct. Yes. But it's not written down. There's no protocol to follow there. We just know we're going to follow these 3 things. That's what's going to take care of us. That's how we come to a right answer. And when we do that, it helps us deal with something called the signal to noise ratio. A lot of times in life, you're going to have like daily bombardment of things that come on your plate. And if you're in any space right now, I think of like, Ashley and Kayla's situation from the core value shout out. Like, here's Ashley stepping into this billing space for the first time, trying to navigate and understand. And a lot of stuff that comes on her plate is very like, is this important? Is this important? Is this important? There's a lot of, and when I do that, I really have to start over time to parse out what parts of things that are coming at me are important and what parts are not important. What's the signal, the important data that's coming at me, and what's the noise, the stuff that doesn't really matter, the stuff that I don't really need to understand. In ambiguity and not knowing the answer, understanding how to navigate that is as important as being confident, right? So that the more I go into it, the more I start to understand, that's not really important right now. That is important right now. That's also with patient vitals, right? Somebody comes into the emergency department and they're like, I'm super short of breath. And then I look at their pulse ox and it's normal, but they're struggling or gasping to breath. I'm like, hey, guess what? That pulse ox, it's 99% right now, not as important. What's important is they're making the sign for choking, so I've got to do something. If I just look at all this data I can use to prove that everything's okay. Look at the patient's pulse ox, and the respiratory rate's good. I mean, the pulse ox is normal. I need to be really intentional about the signal, right? I need to look at the things that really, really matter in the moment to make my decisions. Sometimes it's really easy to just get lost in all the data. Well, I can make the data look better. Well, I can make the data look like I want it to so that we're doing a good job. But if I want to be right, I've got to learn to sparse that signal from the noise. And that really leads to inclusive decision-making. And inclusive decision-making is kind of the lifeline for being correct. Because as leaders and as team members, we have to understand that sometimes the answer that we need is not always the answer that comes from us. So when somebody asks us a question, and I'm sure some of you have been in this boat, I've been in this boat many times. Hey, I'm in leadership. Somebody comes to me with a question, I've got to have the answer. Or I'm the healthcare provider. Somebody comes to me with a question for like, what's wrong with me? I've got to have the answer. Or I'm a manager of this department. When somebody comes to me with a question, I've got to know the answer to that, right? And sometimes if I'm going to have inclusive decision-making and I'm going to give you the right answer, I've got to look outside of myself to get that answer and be intentional about it. So understand that answer doesn't always have to come from me. I've got to challenge that belief. Like maybe this isn't the right answer. Maybe this isn't what we need to do. And so a lot of times too, when we find ourselves being inclusive and we have a lot of confidence and we're being excellent about it and we're really cycling through signal and noise, we have to be really intentional about avoiding the extremes. Because I've been now in leadership for close to 10 years, and I've seen usually one of 2 outcomes that are most common, probably about 90%, and it's probably about 45 and 45 into these camps. One is the people that, I'm going to avoid the responsibility This isn't my issue. I didn't know the answer, but it's not my problem, or I don't have the ownership mentality, right? Or it's the opposite side of that. Gosh, I messed that up. Shoot, I shouldn't have done that. Shoot, I blew it there. Or gosh, I'm going to take responsibility for that. But it's not really. It's not even as important as the other, because if I'm going to be on the other end of this and say, I should have got that answer right, or I should have known that, but I'm not doing anything different, it's almost as bad as not my responsibility, right? It is a tension between both, in the sense that, like, yes, it's my responsibility, and I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to make a difference. And a lot of times, what that comes down to is the level of confidence that we've already talked about. Confidence in the fact that I may not know what the answer is, or maybe have the ability to get the answer, but I am okay with telling you that. Because it's usually dependent on three key factors, three key sections of time. And that is the future, the past, and the present. And specifically the future. The future oftentimes affects our confidence because, unfortunately, a lot of times what happens to us is we say to ourselves, I'm not going to say anything, or I'm not going to try this, or I'm not going to do it, because if I expose that I don't know what I'm doing, or that I'm not confident or competent, it's going to lead to a diminishment in my opportunity in the future. So I'm going to have to save myself in the future by being different or reserved in the present. And I would just say to that, if you think about how much time you've spent in life focusing on, like, a non-growth mentality, right? Just kind of doing life, or not trying to improve, or just coasting. Whatever amount of time that you spent in that area, I would encourage you and implore you to spend an equal amount of time in a growth mindset. I can't tell how many times I've come across this attitude. Like, I haven't had a growth mindset before. This is brand new to me. This is really cool. This is really encouraging. I'm setting goals. I'm doing things. I've done like 10 years of my professional life, and I haven't really ever had that mindset before. But now I do have that mindset, and now I've been doing the growth mindset now for about a year, and it's not going great. I would just encourage you, give your professional life at least 10 years of the growth mindset, because you already gave 10 years to the not so great. At least give that future self 10 years of the good, 10 years of that. I'm going to try it. I mean, I was willing to not be a growth mindset for 10 years, but I'm going to do 10 years of at least a growth mindset. The second thing is the past. And I asked, look at that. Oh, with the sound too, Blaze? Shoot, thank you. The truth is, I didn't know it was going to have sound. That's amazing. I hope it doesn't repeat. So the truth is, a lot of times, the past holds us back more than we care to admit. And here's what I mean by that. Whenever we find ourselves wanting to enter a new situation or a new opportunity, it's usually the things in our past that remind us of why we can't do it. And some of us have had really terrible things that we've walked through, right? Some of you have walked through loss, heartache. Some of you have walked through failure. Some of you have walked through lost jobs. Some have walked through medical complications. A lot of things have influenced our past. And if we harp on those things, it affects the present. And the reason I love the hourglass is because it's a beautiful picture of the past and the future that we have in front of us. And the only thing that we can actually affect is this right here. It's that one little bead of sand going through the hourglass in that moment. Because the truth is, if we focus on what's been, and we spend all our time talking about the things in the past or what's bad that's happened or all the different things we've gone through, that's the only way we guarantee that the past is exactly what happens in the future. Because we're just pulling the same ideologies through again and again and again. And the last thing I want to talk to you about is the present. And the present is that little bead of sand that's currently going through the hourglass. And there's a real big, I don't even know what I would call this lie, but a misrepresentation of our world as it relates to growth and improvement and being correct or trying to find the right answer or being the person you want to be. And it's really paradoxical because what you would see in like film and media is that like when I try to do something, I'm successful at it. But if you look at anything you've ever done in life, most of the time, the first time you try it, it's pretty bad, right? So if I go to the gym for the first time, I'm going to feel really weak before I'm strong. If I try to like do something that makes me afraid, I'm going to be terrified before I become brave. If I try to figure out a new task or a new subject, I'm going to feel like an idiot before I ever master it or become good at it. If I try to learn a new skill, I'm going to fumble around. If I try to like learn how to sew something together, it's going to look awful before it looks good. Because the truth is, everything in life, anything that requires growth or mentality requires failure to improve. It requires this attitude of willing to be totally vulnerable and totally open to like, it's not the way I want it to be. Because being powerful or being wise or being smart is not about showing up when you feel powerful. It's about showing up when you feel powerless and being willing to sit in the space and become powerful with exposure and repeated effort. Because in order to improve, the world's got to break you just a little bit in order to make you what you were made to be. So if you find yourself currently like on this little pathway or journey of like, gosh, it's just not going well. Like every time I try to do something, I'm running into a wall. Or every time I try to like level up, I feel like I slip and hit myself in the face. You're probably on a growth journey. You're probably finding yourself in the middle of something that is improvement. And if it's a struggle, there's probably some serenity on the other side. So being right is just a pursuit of being better. Being right is saying, I don't know, but I'm going to find it. Or I'm going to learn how to do that. And that's okay to learn how to do that because I'm confident in who I am. I have a commitment to excellence, and I'm going to take responsibility. So here's your graphic for your right a lot. Number 1, don't let the pain of the past diminish your instincts. You typically have what you need in order to get the answer that you need. Disprove your own assumptions. If you have an idea and you think it's right, work hard to try to understand it. Take the responsibility to make it work. And last but not least, focus on the moment and seek out diverse opinions to sharpen your thinking. That right answer might not always come from you. And it may be awkward to find the right answer. It may be awkward to say, I don't know. But it's up to you to figure it out. So next week, I'm really excited. We're going to get to go through all 16 of these. Get a little handout, a little graphic. We can look at all of them and talk about what morning thoughts actually sound like and look like and be proactive about like making these things produce a little bit of momentum. But what I want you to do right now is I want you to think about a time in which you had a question, you weren't confident, somebody asked you something, you didn't take responsibility, or you turned in something that was less than excellent. Takes about 1 or 2 minutes, write that down, and then reflect on that personally. This is nothing that you need because the truth is being right or being excellent or being confident is really what you want to put into it. And so if you want to take this and reflect on it and improve on it, that's what I encourage you to do. And then we'll go to our breakouts. And where's Harley? There's Harley right there. Here in about 1 or 2 minutes, Harley's going to get up and open the door, and then we'll all go to our breakouts, all right?